Ahead of the Day of Reconciliation tomorrow, citizens are being asked to reimagine South Africa. The spirit of Ubuntu has been identified as crucial to making the gains of democracy real for everyone. ReImagine SA, a public benefit organisation, believes doing what you can, where you can, with what you have to create a sustainable impact is what is going to take this country forward. I'm joined in studio by ReImagine SA's Luvuyo Madasa. Luvuyo, thank you very much for coming in. Just tell me a little bit about ReImagine SA. It's not a political party, right?
Far from it. It was founded as an advocacy organization that is looking to put forward the space of and the principle of Ubuntu, as you've just mentioned, but in the space of emotional settlement. So how do you heal people? How do you bring them into spaces that recognize them, who they are, what they've gone through? And in working through those wounds of the past and everything that we've been working on as a nation over these last 25 years, create that sense of trust, build that social cohesion, but it starts with recognizing the person who is in front of you or you're working side by side and hand in hand with.
It's so important for the politicians to be on board and to make those public commitments to supporting change. But the reality, I think, is real change is very slow and incremental, and it happens in one-on-one, in individual communities with small groups trying to help each other. Am I correct?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. The best way of engaging in sustainable change is getting people to be identified, to be profiled for the work that they're doing, and to the point that you made earlier, doing what they can with what they have and where they are. And it's only until you build that critical mass that you reach the tipping point that's sustainable, and making sure that mass action is something that is commonplace in every every citizen's workspace, every citizen's home, and the idea of Ubuntu becomes something that we proactively engage rather than something that we are ad hoc and afterthought about.
How do we see past the gloom? We've just come out of, 10 days of load shedding. SAA is in business rescue. We're still seeing terrible incidents of racism, political polarization. Our economy is really in a bad way. Those are the dominant narratives around South Africa that are out there. How do we see past the gloom to find a positive way?
I think we keep on looking at the small wins that we have. Admittedly, it's been 25 years, generation, into our democracy, but in the bigger scheme of things, we're a very young democracy. The advent of technology means that we're learning on a global spotlight, trying to compete with nations that have had a 150-year head start on us, and we're trying to compete with their end results. So of late, you've seen that the Finnish parliament has 5, maybe 4 MPs that are under the age of 35. Now, we're then going to say, why can't we do that? And what we're not in celebrating or trying to compete and measure against an end result is taking cognizance of the journey it took the Finnish community, the government, to get to a point where it understands not only the key role of inclusivity, but also gender inclusivity, but also the importance of intergenerational representation on key national platforms. What that starts doing is bringing another element of dynamic nuance to how people consider the issues at hand. And I think until we start as South Africans recognizing each and every citizen, who they are, where they are, and what it is that they need, can we only unlock the potential that sits in their minds. And I think it's probably one of the most devastating hindrances to our nation is that we don't have quality education expandable to as many people as possible.
This is the thing, no one is going to disagree with your philosophy and your approach, but surely it takes a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of people to create that one-on-one. I mean, how does this organization imagine this unfolding to make it more than just good words?
So we're considering the convergence of this intergenerational engagement, the importance of technology. So you talk about one-on-one. The younger generation learns through technology. The question is, how do we create more meaningful, impactful content?
What are you doing?
What are we doing? We're engaging in workshops in various different corporate sectors. We will have a masterclass that we're driving with various different institutions in the higher education environment, and also working with community members. So it's about building.
What communities are you in?
We are in community by association, so we have a lot of partnerships with various different organizations that are on the grassroots, and what we work with is identifying what it is that they need, how we can support them, and scale them using the network that we have available to us. 2019 has been very much a year of concerted effort building that ecosystem, identifying the needs of the people on the ground, and in working with them, building a model that can be scalable over time. So we have deliberately gone as much as possible under the radar in this year, trying to make sure that we are learning by iteration ourselves, so that we understand how to help the person that's on the ground communicate with the partners that they need and make sure that they have access to the various resource pools that are out there.
It's interesting if you look at what's happening on a global level around climate change, for example, just from Madrid, the news today from COP25, that they've been unable to reach agreement around certain aspects of climate change. So the big rich nations, all very committed to climate change, unable to reach agreement. Climate change is one of the projects that you are working with in communities. Do you think that real change will come from the bottom or from the top, or does it have to come from both?
I think the latter is probably the best representation of how change happens. You have to think systemically about the issues, and that's a top-down, bird's-eye view approach. But you have to actually learn in iterations, and cannot afford to wait over time for the policies necessarily to be 100% perfect. And the way that you start being responsive to the issues on the ground is that you seed various different little projects, and those that gain momentum and hit the international impact in terms of things that are happening on the ground, and best practice is how we're going to learn quickest. I think in the space of climate emergency, we've been considering it as a theory. We had a tornado in KZN less than a month ago. That has never happened, as far as I'm aware, in our space, especially in the KZN area.
Well, we haven't. I think we had 3 or 4 in the space of 2 weeks, which is apparently that's unprecedented, yes.
And it stops this conversation from being a theory of climate change and emergency to it being a reality. Now the question becomes, how do we show commitment as the various different stakeholders to the work that needs to be done? It's not about politicking and posturing and trying to, win political battles. It's about people's lives. If we don't prepare for it, if we don't get the various different sectors to work collectively and collaboratively in solving these problems, we're going to continue gambling with people's lives, because in essence that's what we're doing when we're not solving the issues in the best way possible.
So what I'm hearing from you is that 2020 is going to be a big year for ReImagine SA, that you've got a network of people. One of the things that I'm most interested in, you speak about Ubuntu, random acts of kindness and the power of kindness, because we tend to not think about kindness and the power that it has. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy around kindness.
Kindness comes in just recognizing a human being where they stand. The simple act of greeting. We walk around, I was talking about technology and its benefits, but sometimes it has our captive attention in speaking to everyone who's not next to you. But the simple act of greeting someone, sawubona, molo, dumela, goeiemorgen, greeting them in their language takes that guard down. It allows you to then start interacting with people in a way that matters to them. Ubuntu is getting to know one another, understand what it is that you've gone through, your life experiences that got you here. Ubuntu is about essentially engaging with another person's humanness. How do you recognize that who I'm dealing with, regardless of their disposition at that particular moment, is a person going on their own particular journeys? And if we become more intentional about that, we start elevating ourselves and who we are. And I mean, we do it for a lot of people that have gotten into the Eastern practices of yoga and meditation. They speak to namaste, but that is sawubona. If you think about it in its purest form, that is sawubona. We see you.
Yes.
So how do we as citizens and people who are walking around on the pavements and the hallways and the offices on the public transport get better into the space of greeting, recognizing and appreciating that we are human beings on a journey, and hopefully we can walk hand in hand.
Lovely, thank you so much. And in a world where we're being pulled to polarize and be angry and fearful, I love the messages that you're bringing to us this morning.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you very much. That was Luvuyo Madasa of ReImagine SA.